what landed you in here.
Let's just say that the state and I don't quite see eye to eye on the subject of animal sacrifice.
Shapeshifter is not Frankenstein Reborn, therefore it's one of the greatest movies ever. Enough said.
Dildo bruises.
Girl, you should go to your doctor.
Okay, sorry. If you couldn't tell, I'm still reeling from the last review, and at this point, any movie that isn't that movie is automatically the best movie ever made. But I guess you're expecting an actual analysis from me, so I guess I can take off the rose-tinted glasses and review this film for what it is. And what it is a monster movie. Yeah, just a mediocre monster movie. In any other universe, I'd be groaning that I have to talk about yet another cheap, boring creature feature, especially so soon after the last one, but you know what? I'll take it. After struggling for weeks to write anything coherent about the last flick I was forced to watch, it's refreshing to be back at familiar territory. Admittedly, that territory is covered in a burst sewage pipe, but it's a smell I'm familiar with, and one that owns up to its rancidness. It admits that it's a turd, and not a turd they spray-painted gold and insist it's Academy Award. Alright, I desperately need to change focus. So let's shift our attention to this flick and see what shape it takes. Ginny is a new night guard at a low-security California prison. A low-security California men's prison. Okay. But she and the inmates seem to be on good terms, including one who's a childhood friend of hers, and a new arrival is processed with no resistance whatsoever, so her role at the prison, as strange as potentially life-threatening as it is set to be a relatively stressless one. Unfortunately, the new arrival is revealed to possess the ability to transform into a flesh-eating demon, who makes quick work of the rest of the guards, leaving Ginny and the prisoners that managed to get away trapped with the monster. With the demon bearing down on them, Ginny and her group must find a way out, as well as discover what this monster is, what it wants, and hopefully how they can destroy it. Will Ginny and the rest escape the prison before they're consumed by this horned monstrosity? And once they do, will the remaining prisoners willingly go back to jail? So yeah, this is a low-budget monster slasher movie featuring a creature that picks off the characters until only a couple are left. Yes, another one. That's really what these movies should be called. Don't waste time coming up with a title or character names, just call it another one, and we'll know exactly what we're in for. This is one of the easiest formulas to replicate, and consequently one of the easiest to abuse. Especially for no-budget studios like The Asylum. I've lost track of how many times I've seen this plot during this retrospective alone. Heck, this isn't even the first monster movie set in a prison we've seen from this studio. That's how recycled this idea is. But while Dead Man Walking was so bonkers and unrepentantly gory that it was impossible to not have a good time, this movie isn't. In fact, it's actually quite boring. You may be wondering how they could manage to make a movie featuring prisoners trying to escape a deteriorating jail, running through smaller and smaller enclosed spaces as a transmorphing creature picks them off one by one, as dull as a Democrat's dishwater. And the answer is, more easily than you'd think. For starters, the movie takes too long to, well, start. In the first 20 minutes, we get two Russians babbling about something in the back of their truck, then we get our opening kill, then we get the warden interviewing Ginny for the guard position, then we get Ginny being taken on a tour through the prison, then we get the guy who will turn out to be the monster being taken in, then we get a fight between the predominantly black and Hispanic prison population and the Russian prisoner, then we get an incredibly lengthy set of choppy transition and overlay effects masquerading as a transformation scene, and finally, the monster pops out and starts murderizing people, cutting Ginny and all remaining prisoners off from the main doors, and leaving them scrambling for cover before they're turned into an unidentifiable pile of meat, still more appetizing than the cafeteria's sloppy joes. Some of you may be wondering why I'm complaining that the movie is taking the time to set itself up and show us the area that will soon be covered in more red than Jim the Indian. And it's because I'm not given a reason to care. Sure, we're introduced to who we'll be following throughout the movie, but who actually are these people? What are their names? What are they in for? What defining personality traits do they have that will come into play later in the flick? These questions probably have answers, but none that will affect what eventually become of them. Going back to Dead Man Walking, that movie introduced a lot of different characters in its first 20 minutes. Johnny the escape artist, Sweeney the security officer, Beckett the CDC agent, Dr. Goring, Warden Mahler and his son, and Travis the critically ill new arrival, among a few others. Each one is given a unique personality, a role in the prison, and even the potential to survive. Even if you don't remember their names, the unique way each one plays their role and handles the situation leaves a lasting impression. Plus, each group is isolated and given their own little arcs, so any one of them could be seen as a main character. Also, Dead Man Walking incorporated a ticking time bomb in its opening, introducing a character infected with the zombie virus, visibly getting sicker and sicker until finally he turns and infects the rest of the prison, thus setting up the catastrophe that would make up the rest of the runtime. Here, the movie's just killing time until it decides to let all hell break loose. No suspension, no countdown, just waiting at a red light until the movie decides it's time for things to move. And just like a red light, I'm more engrossed in earning stars in Diner Dash than whatever else is weakly vying for my attention. And once the movie does finally get started, hey, it's still boring and generic. To the point I can easily sum up 90% of the scenes in one sentence. They go to a room, they whine, someone gets killed, they move on. They go to another room, they whine, someone gets killed, they move on. And there's basically your next 40 to 50 minutes. During which time we learn a small bit about maybe 2 other characters and... nope, that's it. Nothing else is accomplished. Just a band of idiots staying just out of reach as they scramble around like headless chickens trying to find another way out, hoping their stupidity doesn't drive them right into the monster's waiting claws. Once again, we have a plot where progression isn't measured by how close they are to escape, but how many are still left. We don't know where they are, we don't know where they're going, we have no bearing on where one location is in regards to another. They just find another room to go in. And another, and another, and another, until, when there are only 2 in the group left, they finally find the room they need. And since we're never given any indication that they're any closer to the outside than they were 30 minutes ago, any suspense related to if they'll make it through the prison safely is almost completely null. Yeah, a little bit of free advice to anyone making a movie. Keeping your viewers updated on location is crucial to audience investment. Imagine if in Indiana Jones they just went from one place to another. No direction, no previous clues given as to where to go, we're not even told which city or country anyone's currently in. They just go there, then they go somewhere else. Personally, I'd feel lost, and upset that these characters I'm supposed to be following are always one step ahead, like they're intentionally trying to shake me off. Or what if an alien were given no idea of the layout of the ship? It's never explained what each room is, or how far one room is from another. The crew members just appear there and get what they need. Well, then there would be no tension as they try to get away, since every walk would feel the same and we'd get the impression that weapons and salvation are right around the corner. Viewers need a map just as much as the movie's characters do. We need a sense of distance, some familiarity the characters can share with us, or the journey just feels monotonous and we don't feel like we're actually following the people we're supposed to accompany. The only reasons not to make it clear where anyone is when the characters are trying to hide and there's tension in not knowing where someone is in relation to another, like in Killers, or when they themselves don't know, so we can share in their exploration and discovery of this new territory, like in War of the Worlds. And yes, you could argue that Dead Man Walking had the same issue with its plot, to which I retort, Dead Man Walking had a plot? Though on that note, I guess I can say the setup here isn't as stupid as that movie's. A diseased patient isn't taken straight from a crime scene to a maximum security prison and allowed to throw up on people who then mingle with the rest of the population and somehow everyone's surprised this leads to a zombie pandemic. Here, it's just a small lockup, and the guy they bring in is a crazy vagrant they probably intend to keep overnight, so the danger's not head-slappingly obvious. And they establish they have procedures for lockup, and they don't carry keys or heavy firearms around mentally unstable prisoners, thereby avoiding most of the incidents from the other movie. But at the same time, that was part of that movie's charm, how fun watching it was just to see what level of incompetence this situation will sink to. If you're not going to incorporate that fun, you'd better come up with your own fun. Otherwise, you're like a horror movie remake that takes itself way too seriously and completely passes over what made the original so good. Even the dumbest of decisions are a good idea if it means avoiding monotony. But hey, as we've seen before, a monotonous script can still be entertaining if the monster brings the fun. As long as there's a creative, energetic, possibly even terrifying abomination at the center, the movie still has a chance of providing a good time for all. Too bad they forgot to bring one. This was actually a movie I was looking forward to. The title of Shapeshifter holds a lot of promise, and I was really excited to see what they did to justify it. So imagine my disappointment when I found out that not only is this one of the most boring asylum monsters we've seen so far, but there's no reason for the monster to be a shapeshifter. Now, to be fair, the title doesn't lie. We do get a human that turns into the monster and then back again. And that's it. A single transformation from man to demon. I mean, come on! You hear shapeshifter and you think of a creature that can turn into anyone or anything. A being that can stalk you without you ever realizing it, because it could be literally any animal, mineral, or vegetable around you. It could disguise itself as your dog, your fun uncle, or that toaster waffle you were about to passively chow down on, and you'd never know until it's too late. It's an idea that's been put to great effect in other movies and TV shows. Here, it's man to beast to man again, and that's all they do to justify the title. It's like somebody calling themselves an award-winning writer because the poem they wrote in first grade got a good job sticker. Technically true, but not quite to the standard that title implies. And no, there's no reason for the monster to be two people. It's not like the guy is someone inconspicuous who keeps a low profile and blends in with the other prisoners. No. It's made perfectly clear that this guy is the demon, and they're both evil. Hell, it's spoiled in the first 3 minutes, and one of the most pointless, tone-ruining opening kills I've ever seen. Opening kills are there to tease the surprise reveal, or give viewers a sneak peek at the central slasher if you're not going for a twist. So if you're going for a twist, yet you give away who your killer is and what he can do right at the beginning, well, it's like Friday the 13th Part 5 opening with Roy taking off the mask and saying, "Hello, I'm not Jason." So when the guy's brought in and nobody's supposed to know he's the monster, I'm just rolling my eyes saying, you already blew the money shot. Don't try to gamble after you're bankrupt. Also, we're never given a reason why the guy has to have an alternate form. His human form seems to hold his own in murdering the survivors, and like I said, everyone already knows who this guy is. It's just sometimes he's human, and sometimes he's a monster. The only difference is that the man kills and the monster eats. Otherwise, both are equally as boring as everyone else in this flick. It's mentioned that the monster grows stronger with every meal, but they never do anything with it. Like if they were able to initially hide behind a steel door that the monster couldn't get through, but then after half a dozen prisoner Happy Meals, he's able to grab it with one claw and wrench it off its hinges. Then we'd have something. A reason for the monster form and something that shows progression and heightens the sense of danger and urgency. But no, it's brought up once or twice, and then never demonstrated. If you're going to be that uncreative and not bother to hide the fact that it's all one guy, why even bother incorporating the ability? Just have the guy be some kind of assassin, sneaking around the prison through the ducts and silently murdering everyone before he hides and waits to strike again. Or even just have the monster. Have the guy summon the demon in his cell, who then kills him and everyone else he can grab. It's like saying Jason Statham can morph into the Predator. It's just not needed. Though I'd love to see that movie. And why did Mr. Morphy get himself arrested in the first place? Well, the Russian guy stole money from the mob, so they hired a gypsy shapeshifter to infiltrate the prison and kill him. As well as anyone else who sees it to protect its cover. Because, that's much less conspicuous than bribing another guard or prisoner or just putting a regular guy in the jail to shiv him. You're making filling a plane full of venomous snakes just to kill one witness sound like the more reasonable, less convoluted plan. When the villain from friggin' Care Bears 2 is more interesting and has more of a reason to be a shapeshifter than the one in your R-rated horror production? Ugh. Needless to say, none of the other characters make sitting through this movie any more engaging. With the exception of one or two, everyone's just riding aboard the meat train. Third-class seating. They have some kind of personality here and there, some defining characteristic that might be noticeable if you bother to pay attention, but ultimately their only contribution is to get killed, so Ginny and her +1 don't have to. I don't even remember most of their names, just one guy's kinda strong, one guy's kinda sorta Satanist, one guy knew Ginny growing up, and one guy's a Russian. And those are the lucky ones, with traits I bother to identify. I guess there's a part where the Russian kills Ginny's friend and attempts to make a deal with the shapeshifter, but like everything else, it's underdeveloped and goes nowhere, so who cares? I'm as invested in these characters as I am in that Kit Kat bar I just ate. It served its purpose, but gave me nothing to dwell on afterwards. The acting quality doesn't help. While the guys playing both sides of the shapeshifter are passable, the performances from most of the other actors are more wooden than if they had filled the roles with a statue of John Wooden. They're either standing around dead-eyed with their mouths open, or mechanically reciting their lines like they only saw the script 5 minutes ago. Sometimes we get an emotion or even a burst of energy, but for the most part they couldn't act any more disinterested if they were told they were getting paid in shredded wheat. I guess I've seen worse, and I can't call the overall quality horrendous, but it is whatever's one step above horrendous. And no, the writing doesn't make them any more interesting. It's two middle-aged white guys writing for black, Hispanic, and woman characters. How do you think the dialogue goes?
Brother, you need to stop sweating others and stop worrying about your original black Asian self. See, the white man feeds you his garbage. You pay him your money. Get loans for more, steal drugs, sell drugs, steal. gobble down his poison and say, please, sir, can I have some more?
Yo, Mo, you need to, change the channel. I'm sick of listening to this one. And that cracker over there need to turn down the volume.
What it is, Big Mama? My mama raised no dummies. I duck a rap.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
Okay, if I had to be positive about something, then I admit Ginny is entertaining from time to time. Oh, not because of her acting. If anything, it's possibly the worst out of everyone, with how flat her delivery is and how she talked through her teeth like an 8-year-old mimicking how stressed out her parents are. But, I don't know. Maybe it's because she proves she can take charge and kick ass, or maybe they gave her the only lines with any personality, but there are a few gleaming moments where her character is convincing. And sometimes even your pants scary.
Here's a little trick I learned from the Mujahideen. Without lighting the flame, you let the butane gas creep up into the victim's nose, and then once the gas has gone deep, you flick the bic. The sinuses melt. Blood and smoke pour out the eyes. It's quite a sight. And the victim doesn't die right away. Rather, he slowly drowns while blood pours down into the lungs.
Cast-wise, it's our usual blend of returning faces, one-shots, and people we'll be seeing again later. Our lead Ginny is played by Jennifer Lee Wiggins, in her first of many Asylum movies, which continue to this day. And in a way, she has ties to Birdemic, having appeared in a small role in that director's first movie, Julie and Jack. Both far more interesting movies than this one. Tyrese is played by Ocean Marciano, a proclaimed music producer, songwriter, manager, and buddies with Chris Brown and Lil Wayne. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a single clip of him or his music, so I don't know what kind he wrote or recorded, and any search for him ultimately circles right back to this, his only full-length movie, so I can't back him up. Though his Instagram does want you to buy his range of gym outfits. The Russian guy Velku is played by Vaz Andreas, who's been in Stuff, and has 2 more Asylum appearances to get to. While Stephen Glynn we've already seen in Killers 2, Death Valley, Scarecrow Slayer, and The Source, and he has 1 more Asylum appearance to his name. Charles Schneider we've also seen before from Alien Abduction and Dead Men Walking, and this wraps up his Asylum work. And yes, he plays a weirdo who gets brutally massacred, so he goes out in character. Bobby James is also back for his last Asylum movie and second to last film, basically cameoing as the warden he played in Dead Men Walking. Probably happy to finally have a role where he doesn't die. And Leigh Scott works in his usual Asylum cameo, playing the opening kill and making this yet another role where he dies, because he apparently attended the Frank Miller School of Cameos. Playing our monster are 2 different actors, both of whom we're very familiar with by this point. The human side is played by Joel Hebner, an actor stuntman who's still active to this day, and who featured in and helped produce the cult classic Automaton Transfusion. But to us, he's the guy who played the monster in Frankenstein Reborn and the Beast in Beast of Bray Road, sorta making him the Asylum's Doug Jones. But in a departure from tradition, he's not the one under heavy makeup this time. Instead, the monster side is played by Thomas Downey, who's featured quite heavily in many of the movies we looked at so far, and whom we're still nowhere near done with. And I gotta admit, after seeing him in only heroic or neutral roles to this point, he does pull off being a giant flesh-eating, soul-sucking demon from the depths of hell. He doesn't get much screen time, and he's partially hidden or covered in shadows for most of it, possibly to hide the fact that it looks like they got the demon costume from a Spirit Halloween store, but hey, I buy that he's playing a monster. A lot more than I buy that these are prison outfits. Seriously, are those IDs written on masking tape with a Sharpie? Oh, and writing directing credit goes to Gregory Lemkin, who only has 3 writing and directing credits, with Shapeshifter being his last time in the director's chair. But he'd go on to a more stable career as a visual effects supervisor for everything from Modern Family to 90210 to Zoo to Fear the Walking Dead to The 100. Even writing and producing his own award-winning movie Saturn Returns, before sadly passing on in 2018. So hey, this movie has at least one success story connected to it. With the comparisons to Dead Men Walking, you may be wondering if the jail setting here has any relation to the one in that movie. And the answer is, yes. It's the exact same prison used for Dead Men Walking. A movie released almost exactly a month earlier, all but convincing me that both movies weren't just shot back to back, but at the exact same time, possibly in different areas of the prison. I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby James recorded his scenes for one movie, then the next crew came in and filmed his scenes for their movie. Didn't even have to leave his seat. The location, by the way, is Lincoln Heights Jail, a decommissioned Los Angeles prison that's a favorite filming spot for movies big and small. From major blockbusters like LA Confidential, 48 Hours, and Iron Man 2, to minor exploitation and horror flicks like Penitentiary, Wishmaster, and even the original Nightmare on Elm Street, you may have seen this jail or its boiler room in multiple movies, or even Blink-182 and Lady Gaga music videos, and never realized it was the same place. So if you were wondering why the prison looks decrepit and unfit to house the guards and prisoners supposedly locked up in this location, well, that's just the price to pay for authenticity. The camera has the problem of being professional at times and horribly amateur at other times. Give the film crew credit, the camera is kept on a tripod or crane for a good chunk of the movie, allowing them to keep the camera steady while positioning it at the right distance to nail the shot, and they even get in some decent tilts and focus changes in some scenes. But when it switches to a handheld, it's some of the jitteriest camera work I've seen from one of these movies. It's always bouncing around, always darting in different directions, like the camera person wasn't clued in on where to point the shot, so they just follow the actions of the actors as they go. All while being hopped up on their 12th Starbucks of the day. And there's no consistency. There's no reason why some shots are still and some are handheld, and we see both used in the exact same locations. Again, not the worst camera work I've ever seen, but if you suffer from motion sickness, maybe keep a puke pail on standby. Oh, and besides the very beginning and ending, the movie continually switches between filters, starting with overexposed lighting, before going green, then blue, then washed out, and sometimes switching back and forth depending on where they are. I guess they couldn't decide which cliched camera filter to use, so they used them all. Well, at least we're spared everything going purple. Thank you for small blessings. The audio is pretty bad, but in the standard way I think I'm used to by this point. It's yet more dialogue where clarity is dependent on how far away the camera is from the actors, so reverb can be in constant flux as they walk across the screen. Thankfully, it sounds like they went to the effort of leveling out the volume in post, so we don't have the frequent issue of having to keep your finger on the volume slider all throughout the movie. And the echo is nowhere near as overbearing as it was in Dead Men Walking, so I guess this movie has one point going for it. But there are certain places where the right channel is much louder than the left, so point taken away. The rest of the sound is just stock effects, especially for the gun and punch sounds and the animal growls they use for the monster. It's annoying having to hear the same overused Foley I've heard in a million other things, but at least they incorporate variety and the sounds sound appropriate to the environment without overpowering the dialogue as we heard before. And then of course we have obvious ADR, where they don't bother to hide that it was recorded in a separate booth, or that the actors' lips were moving for exposition that easily could have been left out.
These aren't electrical lines. Gas pipes.
To the gas chamber?
Therese, what if we drag these things into the gas chamber? I think it's our only chance.
But once again, the worst aspect of the movie is the editing. Someone let David Michael Lapp behind the editor's bench again, and he's discovered the overlay and crossfade functions in Sony Vegas. So, for good long sections of the flick, characters will ghost, usually accompanied by slowdown footage. I'm guessing this is to hide that the special effects budget was the spare change found in the director's couch, but it looks awful. This doesn't look professional. It looks like I sat on the keyboard and accidentally overlaid the same footage over again while putting together this video. And like Way of the Vampire, some points will have extremely choppy montages of scenes we've seen before sped up and or reversed, like they seriously think their audience can't remember events from 3 minutes ago. Just look at this. Who in their right mind would find this appealing to watch? The only reason the editor wasn't fired is because he owns the studio. He even incorporates my personal bane of transition effects, the white flash, which after The Surge, another movie he edited, any sudden cut to white is a brick to my face. Ow! Combine them with some sped up jumpy cuts, and this is one of the worst editing jobs I've ever seen, even from The Asylum. How many more LITA edited movies do we have left? Oh god. And some people wonder why it takes so long for me to get these videos out. Oh, and how was the monster ultimately taken out? By tearing off the pendant the guy was wearing. Shooting it, stabbing it, and locking it in a gas chamber did nothing, but all they had to do was grab the demon's obvious weak point and yank it off. Problem solved. I'd say I'm disappointed, but that would mean I cared at some point. Just file this kill under L for Legion of the Dead levels of letdown, as well as for lame. What else can I say about this movie? Seriously, what else? I'm surprised I managed to come up with this much. It's just another dime a dozen monster slasher flick with absolutely nothing unique or interesting to make it stand out among the hundreds of thousands of other films like this. Sure, the monster looks pretty cool, but nothing's done with it. Or the kills. Or the characters. Or the setting. or any other aspect of the movie. The whole runtime can be summed up with something happens, then something else happens, and eventually it ends. I guess that's better than a pretentious trash movie that leaves you miserable and begging for the end credits to roll, but ultimately it's the exact same outcome. You won't get anything out of it, and it's 80 minutes and $10 you'll never see again. There are many entertaining monster and prison movies out there, some we've even covered here, and this isn't one of them. Don't buy it, don't watch it, just save your time and money. Me, I'm just gonna throw my copy on the fire. The only shapeshifting I want to see is how quickly it morphs into a gloppy pile of polycarbonate. And with that, we have officially entered into a new era of the Asylum. Now that they've cleared their queue of the last few generic horror flicks they'll be making for a while, it's full speed ahead for the mockbusters that they will soon forever be associated with. And with few exceptions, it would become the bulk of the Asylum's output for the next several years. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, and it's time to dive headfirst into the movies that made the Asylum famous. Except not quite yet. Since we're about to enter a whole new look for the Asylum, I feel we need to properly cap off this time capsule of the Asylum's early work. So before we move on, let's do a quick look back at the movies that began the Asylum, especially the ones we can breathe a sigh of relief we'll never see the likes of again. Come back next time as we go over the top 10 worst classic Asylum movies. Hey there everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting me on Patreon and help me create even more content like this. It's only $1 to get early access to my videos, and only $5 gets you a credit at the end of each of those videos, with higher tiers offering these and even more perks. And as you help me reach certain goals, I have super special content lined up for all of you. Head on over and check out my Patreon today, and I'll see you next time.